Hi, my name is Pgoldberger. I'm the founder of the Enterprise Engagement Alliance, and we're dedicated to helping organizations of all sizes and types achieve their goals by fostering the proactive involvement of all stakeholders. And this is part of our ongoing YouTube channel where we invite experts at the front lines of business to help organizations apply these strategic and systematic approach to people management in their day-to-day business lives. And what's the best way but to talk to people who are at the front end of it? And so today we're here to talk about essentials in sales engagement, what organizations need to really get sustainable results from their sales organization that's consistent with a people-focused organizational strategy. So we're happy today to have Peter Goldberger. He's been in the business of engaging sales and channel sales teams for more decades than he wants to count or that he looks. And he's senior partner at the Incentive Team, which was founded 10 years ago to help sales organizations better engage their sales teams to achieve goals. Dan Cilley, who's Chief Executive Officer of Vendor Neutral, and truly, I don't know him personally, but I know him through LinkedIn as an innovator, and again, a strategic and systematic approach to sales enablement, and achieving success through better practices. Um, and Dean Mutter, we're happy to have him as well because he brings two perspectives. He's VP and Chief Revenue Officer, for Lux, which is a 30-year-old incentive company that's been focused on sales and channel programs. But Dean also has decades of frontline sales management operations experience. So getting that insight, Dean, is terrific, and thanks for joining us. And finally, Ira Ozer, whom I've known probably since the early 90s, a bleeding edge advocate for ROI management, for strategic and systematic approaches, and to the integration of organizations' engagement strategies. And so nobody can give us a better historic talk about all of this, or perspective, I should say. And I always, of course, have to thank the organizations that support the Enterprise Engagement Alliance's outreach efforts to help companies, again, foster from a strategic and systematic approach to people. So thanks again, panelists, for being here today. And Dean, I want to start with you because I looked at your LinkedIn background, and I've seen you. I've spoken with you, of course, many times over the months, and you bring a real front lines perspective. And I wanted to ask you. Do you think that, to what extent do you think organizations really apply a strategic and systematic approach to their sales management that really gets people aligned with the organization's mission, their goals, and what they need to do, and give them the teams to do it in a measurable way? How mature do you think organizations are at being strategic versus reactive?
It's probably more reactive than strategic. It's interesting. It's almost a control and command thing. If it's a command and control situation, like a call center where people are making outbound calls or accepting inbound calls, much more control, much more they stick to the plan, they stick to the book. And then you got what I call free range salespeople, which are the ones who are in the field doing what they need to do. And you let them loose and they come back at the end of the day and say, what'd you sell? And then you say, what are you going to sell tomorrow? Those folks are going to be less strategic most cases than the inside folks. So but as an overall group, not that strategic, much as they like to try to be. They may try and drive teams by saying, we'll give you more incentive for this, or more money for this, or better pricing for this particular thing. But at the end of the day, it's all price driven. And most of these sales folks, again, they're the free range group, as I speak of. They're the WIFM, what's in it for me? So wherever the shiny little object is, they'll go reaching for it. And management just moves it along and they follow.
So, Peter, assuming you agree with that, and I believe you do, why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's a great point, and he said it exactly right. But it is true. I mean, people are looking for that bright, shiny object. What is going to make our organization move? If it worked here, could it work somewhere else? Instead of taking that step back and saying, okay, what are the four things that are critical to be successful for every salesperson? Since we focus on salespeople, what are those four things? And then designing something that will wrap around those four things and measuring those four things.
And Dan, do you see any signs of change coming to this? Again, you've been a very big advocate for sales enablement and sales technology, and we'll get to that a little bit more in detail. And you've seen it, you're at the front ends of people being an issue related to successful sales. Do you think there's companies are beginning to shift, assuming again that you agree with our colleagues here, that companies have been kind of reactive, rather than proactive? Do you think there's a sign of a change and that companies are beginning to realize they have to be more holistic about sales management?
Well, I'm not sure if it's happening, but I think it's a necessity. Um, I, I, the strategy really needs to revolve around involving all stakeholders. So again, there's stakeholders at every level in the organization, but involving all of them, understanding, what is currently supporting them, what technology, what data, what insights they're looking for, and then also understanding how they could potentially work together holistically, as I mentioned before. And I really, at the end of the day, that's the objective we have to achieve. That the stakeholders within an organization understand the greater goals, understand the greater objectives, and that they have to work collaboratively to achieve them. So I think that that's the first step to achieving these goals. But I feel that it's quite a bit of a gap in achieving those goals, achieving that capability.
Ira, your perspective on this comes from the fact that, in a sense, for years, you've been providing managed outsourcing on all elements. And folks, if you ever need to find somebody in anything from training, communications, technology, or people like Dan, that's how so many people I find it's through Ira. So Ira, I think one of your early contentions was companies, you've got to organize this stuff. You can't just have training over here, rewards over here, communications over here. You've got to align it. Has that gotten across yet, or are we still at the very early stages of that?
I think, Bruce, we're really at the early stages. The difference between a tactical program like an incentive or recognition or loyalty program and an engagement program isn't just the vernacular of the word. It's not the synonym. It's not the same meaning. In my view, an engagement program needs to add in all the levers of engagement. So it starts with assessment, designing the program correctly, then having the levers, including the proper balance of incentives, recognition, training, coaching, and training and coaching are usually not included within incentive programs. Typically, they're separate departments. They're not aligned well. And by offering salespeople incentives, that's great, but incentives alone aren't enough, especially to move the middle 60. So it's important to have all of this. And the third piece is methodology. It's, without giving people the right method that works in today's marketplace, you're not going to, no matter what incentives or other ways of manipulating people, you're not going to get real performance change going.
I think another aspect, Ira, sorry to interrupt, but I think that another aspect to consider is how it's communicated, right? How is our best practices shared? How are successes shared? Because success generates success, right? Excitement generates excitement. So if people are motivated by an incentive program, motivated by the results they're getting, and we're capturing that best practice and sharing it, I think that's a critical point here I feel is missing in a lot of organizations, that just everything is so centralized or focused. It's, why not talk about an incentive program that worked in another division, another department across the organization, and try to gain some collaboration, try to gain some opportunity from it. So just to add something.
No, well, thank you. That was actually something I wanted to talk about. And in fact, we even will get back to that. So, we get to this, Peter, you mentioned 4 elements. So the critical elements to engaging salespeople, unfortunately, calls for companies to break down silos, doesn't it? It really requires them to look holistically at what they do. What's your perspective on that?
You're absolutely right. When I started a couple decades ago and people were still using IVR technology, it was a little bit more difficult to reward for steps of the sale. As it's already been mentioned today, training is a huge piece of changing behavior for obvious reasons. But then what has to happen after that training is they have to use some of that information. So whether it's role playing and designing role playing into your rewards program, That might be a piece of it. Rewarding for the correct calls, rewarding for the demos or whatever it might take. It's those steps of the sale that they have to stay focused on. If salespeople wait, VP of sales wait to see that Johnny might have gotten 0 for the month, or Susie noticed that Mark got 0 for the month, we're 30, 60, 90 days too late. We are. There was an issue that's, I believe it was Dan mentioned earlier, where yes, training maybe from a corporate perspective is obviously important on a product, but there's also managers having to get involved. Where are we missing here? Are we doing well on our calls, but not getting to our demos? Are we doing well on our demos, but we're not presenting the solution correctly? And what these programs can allow sales managers to do is find out where is that weakness in the sales process before it's too late.
And that's, really interesting, Dean, because, it's funny. One of the things you've been involved with in your career is incentive programs involving beautiful trips, right? That, and I wanted to ask you something that's interesting. Anyone who's been on one of those trips, and we might have an audio problem. Dean, I hope it's not you, because I wanted to have you speak.
Yeah, I'm good.
There's somebody who has an audio feedback. I don't know what that is. I've seen my hand. Well, we're going to proceed. I don't know what that is, but we have does everybody hear it, or is it only me?
I don't hear you.
I don't hear it.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so moving on then.
Fantastic trips. You left off.
Yeah, on incentive trips. Companies spend enormous amounts of money on these programs. And we know they work when you're on them because everybody's jazzed up.
Mm-hmm.
But Dean, in your many years of experience, did you ever notice that the CFOs, unless there was a change of management, was even asking what the return on investment was, on how these really aligned?
Not really. No, I think it was one of those feel good things that everybody felt this is a good thing. It's bringing, they always talk about camaraderie and fellowship and, with everybody, and just, kind of hobnobbing with the big guys, and the big guys could hear what the rank and file would hear, or what they want to say. And sometimes they probably said a little too much at the open bar, but it was valued from that point of view. I don't think they looked at it ever as what's our ROI, other than, we're going to spend whatever, 400, about 700,000, 500,000 for a trip for a couple hundred people. The part that always drove me crazy, as well as the rest of the teams that, who didn't get to go, is that you're rewarding the top 1% and the other 99%. I think Ira mentioned the 60%. You think about the bell curve, that bell curve piece, if you can get that middle chunk to move up a little bit, but they look at the trip and go, oh, there's no way I'm going to get that. Forget it. I'm not even going to try. And you lose them. So that's, those trips, I think they're important. We do them. And, at Lux, it's been our business for 30 years, but there's other tools we brought along to help reward everybody. And then maybe the tip top folks get to go, but we try to lift the middle as well. Because if you can lift that middle 2, 3%, 4, 5%, that top line grows, the cost of the expenses are minimal, and it's a win-win for everybody. But a short answer to your question, no. Nobody else ever asked about the ROI on the trip.
And you're not alone. I assure you, we can all agree on that. Ira, the interesting thing is, isn't it ironic, because these programs can really be measured, and Peter was alluding to some of that. You can really measure the steps to the sale, and we'll get to CRM in a minute with Dan. But isn't it almost a joke that companies aren't measuring these programs, because they really are powerful if you do it right?
It really is. They should be measured, and not just the simplistic way that they're often measured, which is, hey, did we boost revenues and profits and then divide that by program costs? That's important, but there's more to it. If you look at all of the ways that incentive programs can affect the entire operation of the company. So does some of the merchandise, to the goods that usually come from overseas by boat, did some of it have to be Federal Expressed? Because the sales reps were given, a lot of incentive points for getting it sold fast. Things like that. What's the effect on operations, finance, shipping, manufacturing? So if you look at all of the components of ROI, it can have a dramatically even greater effect on the company's performance. Positives and sometimes negatives that have to be accounted for in the program plan.
And adjusted for, obviously.
Right.
Dan, you have a real expertise in sales automation, and there's one area, of course, on CRM I'm going to ask you about now. But in terms of the actual application of CRM and its real use by organizations to engage salespeople and really give them the tools, do you think that we're using technology to enable salespeople sufficiently, or is there still too much focus on using it to control salespeople? Oh, we've lost you, Dan. Lost your audio.
How's
Thank
that?
you. You're back.
Better.
Great. That's a great question. I want to take a step back to the previous elements for success, because I think it attributes to this. So when you think about, what mistakes we make surrounding, these programs and helping them be more successful, I think it's about, there's not a one size fits all strategy, right? So I think that, you got to look at an individual, an introvert or an extrovert, what motivates them, what demotivates them. As well. And I think that when you start to think about CRM and you think about adoption of those resources, it's, I can tell you right now that there are a lot of introverts out there that, you tell them, fill in these fields, capture this information, ask these questions, and they are fully capable and willing to do so. And populate the CRM with the information that we need to be successful, where an extrovert may ask these questions, won't take the time in some cases to document it, to utilize the resources available to them to enable their success. So I can tell you right now that CRM today is a big part of this incentive and motivation strategy, because I feel that at the end of the day, we need to incentivize people to do the things we need them to do, right? We need to motivate them to capture the data we need as senior leadership to make effective decisions. We need to ask the questions of our clients to further along the opportunity. Again, there's just much value in integrating these types of programs into a platform that can see real results from it.
And Peter, as you know, there's another analogous type of technology. There's all sorts of sales engagement or employee engagement technologies as well. And right now it's possible for any organization to have on one smartphone app, not only their CRM, but to also have their training program, their communications, their leaderboards. People can share recognition. They can share, to Dan's point, success stories, post a video of a successful sales presentation. And all of this stuff exists right now, and that even provides the opportunity to integrate a survey. How are you feeling today? Do you feel like you've got the information you need? Maybe even a little game, a test. Hey, what's our competitor's biggest selling advantage according to their marketing, and then have a little thing where you can get points. That's all possible right now. Peter, how many companies do you think have really taken advantage of all this technology, given the incredible analytics you can get when you use it properly?
It's far and few between. It truly is. But I am hopeful. I am. I can say that I think the companies who are doing really well that I've spoken with recently do actually have plans in place to incorporate some of these things. But it really is few and far between at this point. It really is.
To Peter, I think that, more importantly, I think that a lot of these organizations need to build that foundational capability, what's with the CRM, whether it is with, prospect engagement technology or sales enablement, content management technology, or learning and management resources. It's just so many different things, but it's having that foundational element to be able to enable your sales teams, enable your marketing teams to do the things you're asking of them. And I feel that that's where a lot of organizations, they kind of leapfrog their own success because they are focusing on that shiny object, that goal that they think they need to achieve. But the reality is if they spend a little bit of time focusing on their processes and what needs to happen to move that needle just a little bit, and what technology or what resources could do that, that's going to really make some results or improve their capability.
Right, Dan. It's almost like it's part of their culture, the ones who are doing it correctly, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah.
And Dean, you're kind of new to the capabilities of these technologies as you moved over to Lux. You've seen some technologies that are astounding in terms of being able to integrate in one platform all of these different sales enablement practices. So they're on your cell phone, you're on your smartphone. And, almost everybody has a smartphone in every demographic group, almost 90%. So Dean, could you imagine what you could have done with the technology you've seen in some of your past organizations in terms of interacting with your salespeople every day, no matter where they are?
Oh yeah, it would have been. I think it'd be a real game changer. And again, one of the biggest struggles we had in our organization was getting good, up-to-date data, and then getting that data out to the field. So people would be like, let's say the month it's April, right? So we're in April now when we're recording this. Somebody sitting in April, they may not have the results from February or even January just came in, so they don't know where they are. So everybody's always struggling with trying to get good, solid numbers. That was the bigger the organization, the bigger that problem was. And having good, clean, usable data is really critical. And then being able to do the whole gamification or the leaderboard, again, because these are folks who are, generally speaking, whether they're the introverts or the extroverts, they want to win. Otherwise they're on the far end of that bell curve, meaning either they're on the way out or they're just learning the business. But everybody else wants to be up on top of the leaderboard, and to be able to have that and show it with current data, like 40, 20 days, 10 days out after the month is over, by the 15th of the following month, I want updated data. If you can show that, again, through APIs, now we can pull that information, make it available like that. That's great. That would have been really helpful.
So Ira, isn't it in a funny way that just like many CEOs are kind of driving with one eye on the road because they don't have good human capital metrics? They don't know what their HCROI is. They don't even know what their human capital value add is, or even revenues per customer, which you should be able to. What are my revenues per employees, cost per customer? What are my referrals? You should know that. Those are drivers of your economics. But just think of it, even in the sense of engagement of our sales team, how little we really know about them, especially now where everyone's working at their home. And could we be at the beginning of another revolution in engagement technology? These apps, these platforms that enable companies to literally engage on a daily basis on the smartphone. You've been at it for a long time. Do you think this could be CRM in 1990? That, this could be the beginning of an enormous revolution in sales engagement technology?
Yeah, Bruce, there's no doubt about it. There's more and more of the technologies and apps we're seeing in the marketplace, and they're coming out every week. New companies are coming out, are integrating multiple functions under one system. In the human capital, human resources tech space, Josh Bersin is a very well-known analyst, and there is a plethora of employee engagement app tools coming out, and integration is the main thing. And that's true in the sales tech environment as well. Dan can talk better than anybody in the world about that. But where platforms were just tactical one thing, incentives and recognition, the disconnect we talked about before between training and coaching, we're going to be seeing those integrated. Surveys and polling incentive platforms do, but they don't really use them very well because they're not considered essential to what we need to do, which is behavior change, which is validating people, which is telling them, hey, you're the sales rep, you're on the front line with our customer, you're the expert, tell us, and then also innovation, really looking for innovative ideas from the customer, looking at the customer. Who better to do that than sales reps on the front line?
So Dan,
Yes.
looking at there's this whole movement about stakeholder capitalism and a new focus on people. This is coming from the Securities and Exchange Commission now requires companies to report on how they treat people. There's the environmental social governance movement. And I'm wondering whether there's also a generational shift in how we're going to have to sell and manage sales. I grew up in this culture of hitting your quotas. How many calls did you make today? And maybe a little BS about trying to get me excited about go, go, go. But don't we really have to move to a whole new customer focus in our sales and really start? Is there a new generation of customer we have to adjust to?
Oh, absolutely. No longer can we be product focused. If we are going to be product focused, we're going to be floundering. Our buyers, our customers, they want to be embraced. They want to be part of a journey with us as Warren Buffett used to say, and a quote, I wrote it down. Warren Buffett used to say, price is what you pay and value is what you get. Well, he just updated it the other day, and he says now that the unexpected value you bring is the future of sales. And that's an important message, because if we think about, what we've been doing for decades, pushing product, pushing it down their throat until they realize it for themselves that it was going to help them. Now we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to produce good content, to be an attractor of buyers, right? To be that one who showcases the abilities of an organization and a product and a solution, and it literally attracts the right buyers. And once those buyers embrace that strategy, then they can follow a path that's going to reinforce that solution and how it's going to improve their capabilities, improve their process, improve their goals and objectives, and help them achieve those goals and objectives, I should say. So I think that that's the evolution here, is that it's much more value focused and a lot less product focused.
And so, Peter, getting toward the end of this program, are you seeing a change in your customers at the front lines? Are you beginning to see more people interested in a more holistic approach, stepping back? Has the pandemic made people think that maybe we can do this better?
Absolutely, yes, yes. They are looking at stepping back and saying, okay, in a channel program, for example, what do we need to get to do to help our customers sell more product? If it's ours, that's great, but also just to sell more product is helpful as well. So we've been offering different training modules on just sales processes, things of that sort. But in addition to that, they're asking themselves, okay, that's great. We can help the customers with their business, but what else can we do with our rewards program? Yes, we are focused on the sales strategy, the sales process. But in addition to that, while we have our best customers on our rewards platform, what else could they be doing here? Can they take different surveys on what new products they might like? What type of innovations are important to them? What is the hottest finishes if I'm in the plumbing industry? Grains for the floor covering industry, etc. And then they're also putting spec sheets in these reward programs now, so customers can visit one spot, digital sales books, things of that. It is now all encompassing these reward programs.
So, Dean, I'm going to give you the last word because we're just about out of time. Do you see a potential revolution? You've been in the business a long time. Do you think that we're seeing a convergence of humanity and technology that could lead to a more holistic sales culture?
Yeah, you're looking at like the brave new world of sales, and I think eventually it'll get there, but I think it's going to be a slow process because, again, because of the demographics of who's selling nowadays. You've got the young end, the Gen X's and the millennials, and you've got the boomers on the other side, and everybody in between. And so there's going to be different levels of adaptation. But as time goes on, I think, yeah, it's going to become a much more, as our societies become much more technology driven, I think that'll happen as a natural progression as again, those other, the less, how should I say, open to it or older group will be moving off and moving away, and the younger folks will be coming in and expecting it. I mean, that's the only way they know how to live is, with a thing in their hand, an electronic thing.
I'll give you one last thing. Dean's a little pessimistic that it's going to take a while. What do you think?
I think change, it will take a while, but I think change can occur pretty rapidly. The pace of technological change is occurring. Things like the pandemic has jump started.
Yeah.
The hybrid work environment, which is going to be here to stay, and the technology just keeps getting more and more awesome. So it's a brave new world. It'll be really interesting.
Well, I thank all of you for sharing your expertise. And the quick recap is that, folks, Take a strategic and systematic approach to sales. Look what's been learned in manufacturing with total quality management. If you're proactive, strategic, systematic, you're going to get better results. Really look holistically, what we're hearing from our experts here. Look at the behaviors and how you can change them, not just focus on the goals, but the behaviors that lead to them. Be holistic. Look at all of the levers of engagement. Break down those silos. Have your learning supported by your communication, supported by your rewards. Have your culture and sense of purpose built into that. Look at addressing the emotional needs of your salesperson. It's a tough job. Historically, we have not measured these programs. Yes, we can measure these programs, but don't just measure the dollars, measure the behaviors that have changed. So that's just a bit of what you've learned today if you listen to this. So I thank all of our colleagues here. All of this information is up on your screen. All of it's free. You can learn all about a strategic and systematic approach through everything through the Enterprise Engagement Alliance. Thanks again, everybody, and look forward to another show.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, gentlemen.
You.
Everybody.